A lot of these songs are very much about myself, but for the first time, they're not autobiographical.
I think with this record, you can tell that everything is real, that humans made these songs. They played these songs, and they're, real drums in a real room with real microphones miking them. And we spent 5 days in here before we even started tracking, going through all the material, playing through all the stuff, basically tightening up everybody's parts, taking out, shaping the drums a little more to suit the rest of what everybody was playing, just kind of streamlining everything. So when we actually went to start recording, it was pretty clear and concise what everything was going to be.
Coming into it this time, the guitar on this record is a lot more sparse. It's more, we try to build it in more as like a foundation or a texture. Keep Doing What You're Doing was a lot of riffs stapled together. This, I think we try to build more of a song. And vocally, kind of the same thing. Whereas Keep Doing It What You're Doing and Grow Up Dude were very much, the vocals were seen as more of an instrument on those records. I feel like this time, I personally put a lot of thought into melody, how it interacted with other guitar parts, drums, things like that. And Evan helped a lot with that too.
I try to keep it tight with Matt. A lot of his kick patterns and stuff are a little weird, so I try to play on that, and then more so just play bass the way I have been playing bass for so long.
I tried to aim to suit each song with like a specific tone, as opposed to like other recordings we've done. I've pretty much played like the same guitar and the same amp for every single song, and like this album we went for like a lot more textural stuff. Like my personal guitar playing is more like shreddy, and I really tried to dial it back so that it was like more suitable for like the songs, Yeah. It was less self-indulgent.
Play what was needed. I tried not to overdo anything. Like, I didn't want to do anything like extra crazy, and just like what I felt was like what would suit the song best, and not like overly show off like how shreddy I am, because I hate when drummers like over shred during a song, and I think it just takes away. I really wanted to do what was best for the songs, and like play parts that were cool, interesting, and like simple, but like suited the songs in a good way, I guess.
So that's been the main thing, is just taking what they have as their basic ideas and shaping them and organizing them a little nicer, and giving them the perspective of someone who's not in the band, who hasn't listened to the songs 100 times, to tell them what is really, really great and what is maybe less than great.
I've got a leak. Certainly it pushes thoughts behind my teeth and fills the room around me. So light its mess, it rises up, hangs until it drops, blanketing surroundings. I don't feel like myself or anyone else. I don't feel like myself or anyone else. I don't feel like myself or anyone else. Prescribed to feel this way by oxygen that I exhale with poison.
The hardest part, I think, for the band was pre-production, just because you spend a year with these songs, and then in the span of a week, you have to break them down to nothing and build them back up again. So a lot of things that you could have fallen in love with on the demos tend to change a lot. And I think that was hard for the band to, not that we ever have a problem agreeing, but it's hard to come to a consensus a couple times, which is, I guess that's just natural.
The last record we made, we tracked it and mixed it, I think, in less than 14 days, which is not a lot of time. We had 1 day of pre-pro instead of 5, so we had 1 day to get in the space and kind of rehearse the material and tweak stuff, instead of almost a full week to get to do that, which is, pretty fortunate that we were able to do it. It's the first time Matt and I were ever afforded that amount of time. And also being able to mix it in the studio that we made it is a big deal. We've never been able to afford to do that.
The last record, we did it in a really sort of typical fashion where we go through and we do all the drum tracks, then we lay down all the bass, then all the guitars, and sort of layer it. Whereas this one, we took a way more song-by-song approach. So different drum treatments depending on the song. We did a lot in pre-production so we could sort of see where all the songs, maybe where they're gonna go on the record, how tight they should be, how open they should be, how dry, and sort of just go song by song and treat every single little component of it with the respect that it deserved, because we just weren't crunched for time at all, which is something I've never gotten to do, and the results are just wild.
For me, I'm trying to make the most, listening to these songs and really enjoying them, because I come to the band not only passionate as feeling kind of a member, playing on the last record and being so involved with the last one and seeing how the band's grown. The attachment to the band to me is really close, and so I want these songs to. But I'm distant enough where I can listen to the songs as with an objective ear, wanting to make the most out of the parts that you guys wrote. And to me, in this particular case, I think it smooths out the beginning, and then makes when it happens later
More interesting.
more interesting, and B, more intentional. It makes it feel special. It feels like a really important transition from verse 2 to chorus 2. And in turn, in my opinion, makes that part quirkier. Because if it happens twice, that doesn't make it as weird. It's weirder to me and more exciting and interesting as a listener if that's this little dash of something cool on. That comes out of nowhere. It's what's this whoa, takes this wave shift, you feel like you're on a boat. Yeah.
I really love the song Kerning. It's the closer on the album. It's just a couple keyboard tracks and Tanner singing, but I think it's the most intimate performance I've ever heard from him. I'm really proud of him, not only as a bandmate, but as a friend, for being able to pour himself out so much. I was legitimately moved to tears the first time I heard it sequenced within the album. As far as something the whole band worked on together, I really love the song. We don't have a name for it yet, but the second to last track on the album has a lot of great rock moments, great You Blew It rock moments.
There are a couple songs that I wrote the arrangements for. One of them is called Kerning, and I really, really love that song. Tanner and I worked on it together for a minute. He showed up basically with it was a single piano note line and a vocal line, and it was well, what can we build with this? And so we sat down together, we worked on it and figured something out, and I think it's amazing.
It barely took any time to record. It was just something Tanner sent me as a demo, and he was yeah, I think I want to try and I want this song to be realized for the album, and I immediately was yeah, that would be great. But it grew into something that I didn't even realize was going to be so powerful, even though it's so simple.
And there's a song they wrote called Greenwood, where it's just this slow build, really beautiful song, and really left itself open to a lot of textural possibilities with other instruments that we could use, because it was so sparse in the guitar. And I think that song is just a total highlight for the record. It's this just beautiful, beautiful piece of work. It's really, really good.
When we were playing it in the album together, we were all I liked the song, but I wasn't sure where it would go. And it sounded not the way I imagined this band to sound. But we came here and we were playing it, and then once I heard Tanner's vocals over it, it really brought it together. And then the drumming was changed a little bit, and it came together so awesome. And I just like that, because to take a song that you weren't crazy about and having it turn into honestly one of my favorite songs was pretty cool.
there's a song called Autotheology that I think has like some very strong vocal moments that seem to me like, oh yeah, I can imagine like the kids in the crowd singing that like back, and just I can feel like leaning over into somebody's face and just like sharing that moment with them, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping like that one definitely is like included in our sets for a while to come.
I'm most pumped about the working title is Boat Kid. It first started as 2 separate songs, but they were kind of in the same key and kind of the same feel. And the one song had like a really cool part, and then the other song had a really cool part, and we just combined the two into like a really cool song. The ending of it is super, super heavy, but like very fun to play. It's just like a real fun, posy, fun jam, yeah.
I guess I'm hoping that Forecasting ends up being one of those songs.
It's definitely forecasting.
Forecasting. That's gonna be a fun song to play. I hope people like to jam out with that.
It has a cool like chromatic part that's really apparent in the song. There's like some big pauses that are, like have good anticipation and stuff. It like builds you up. It's like and then it comes in, and I think that's gonna be awesome to play live. So I'm excited for that.
I can make this worse. Oh, persistence. I can make this worse.
The hardest part for me personally was writing these songs, like putting melody and lyrics on top of it. The pressure was on way more than I thought it would be on this record. I think I was expecting too much of myself, and kind of, because for the first time I was happy, you know? Like I was really happy I had nothing to sing about, nothing to like whine about. So admittedly I kind of drove myself insane, sort of. I had to start seeing a therapist because I didn't have anything to write about, and it really messed me up inside not having anything to write about as a musician. And in a weird turn of events, that gave me something to really latch onto as inspiration. Just the kind of mental eccentricities that go into songwriting.
The writing was definitely hard because we were so like in different areas all the time. So finding time to get together and not tour and like sit down and actually write was very difficult. Like everyone's schedule had to match up pretty well.
It was the first record that we made in anticipation of all of us moving out of Florida, or the majority of the band leaving Florida. So we spent a lot of time in a cabin together. We banged out like 9 songs in about a week. And then for a couple months after that, we would write a song here or there. But just the last 2 years has been like very touring intensive for us. I think we've spent like over 250 days on the road out of the last 2 years, at least.
I can't think of a moment that was really like a huge pain in the ass. There were challenges, but it was the challenges that kind of get you psyched on making records, because you'll get stuck on something, or like Matt and I will disagree, or like, you know, me or like Andy or Tanner would disagree, and then through that disagreement come to find something that's even better than the first thing that we disagreed upon, and then we're both really psyched about it. And they're totally patient enough to go through that process and not get frustrated and not get down on the experience, you know?
You know, I guess the trap would have been, given the amount of time that we had, to get lazy or to, you know, say, oh, that's enough for today. We have a whole month, but we definitely didn't do that, and we kept the foot down. And I think it paid off, but a lot of the days ended up, you know, it was grueling. Totally worth it.
We had so much time to get everything absolutely perfect that we would go down a rabbit hole, and sometimes for like 4 or 5 hours be working on like a kick sound or a snare sound or a certain Rhodes part with a certain distortion on it. And we had to realize that we had the sickest sound like 3 hours ago, and sort of like getting back to that. Having as much time as we did to do this record was sort of, you know, a blessing and a curse at the same time. And it was sort of a challenge to have that much time. And it was a challenge to know when something was right and just roll with it, and try to overcome the fear of getting it wrong, because there's no excuse to get it wrong because you have so much time.
We could take half an hour and say, oh, what would happen if we, you know, without divulging any secrets, if we did this bizarre, wacky thing, and we could take time to tweak that to make sure that it did exactly what we wanted to. And so as a result, there's a lot of really awesome organic sounds on here.
All the songs sound totally different, and bringing them together to make one cohesive record, one piece of art, was something that was really, really daunting for me. But we used little sonic elements throughout the whole process to sort of tie everything together. And it's not necessarily making the one kick sound similar to the other kick drum sound. It's like, oh, there's this weird rattle from the motor on a vibraphone at the end of this song that sounds so fucking cool. We want to make it a recurring theme on the record, so it like reappears here and there. That one track we were just working on, Minor Y, has like, there's a whole percussion section that's made entirely of sounds that we captured elsewhere on the record. So we got to do a lot of cool stuff like that.
You know, we spent all this time creating sounds and soundscapes and, you know, these ideas that maybe taken out of context didn't make any sense. But when you put it together, it's a very lush sounding record. And the guys played the hell out of it.
Just being able to hear that, the culmination of so much hard work over a year and a half, 2 years, is super, super moving.
First time we listened to the sequence of the songs, I cried. It was just rewarding. This has been my favorite recording experience and favorite release I've ever done, as like to this moment. So anything, I'm proud of what I've done as a drummer before, but like this means a lot to me.
It just feels like we made something that is going to be appreciated by the fan base that has been so kind to us for the last 2 years. Like, I feel like we've really grown as a band. This is the first time that like the same lineup that had been touring on the previous material is playing on the next album, and you know, I can't see anybody leaving from here.
Listening to what we had accomplished, like I was in there listening to it a few mixes ago, just like the whole album front to back with my eyes closed, and I was like, wow, like I can't believe that's something I contributed to, like a piece of art that's, you know, so profound like that. That was the coolest feeling. And then, yeah, I just liked it a lot.
The album is definitely a departure from like everything we do, but it's still us. So I'm proud of where we've grown.
This is really the first time that a full group has started and ended the process. And it's just the best feeling.